Who would be a Wolves fan, eh?
On goes Bull. People might yet win it here for Wolves. Flash in the shot. What a goal!
Hello, and welcome to today's episode of Wolves Fancast, part of a 19-min network. Joining me today, we've got Dogs, we've got Tom, we've got Andy. That's exactly how we want to show it. I mean, I just let you in behind the curtains. I literally said about 2 minutes before recording, you can't hear my washing machine, can you guys? So it's that sort of slick run operation that keeps literally tens of you tuning in every week. Unfortunately, guys, we are here to talk about another defeat, although it was a spirited one, I'd like to say, because we weren't awful, which I know isn't a baseline, but let's get right into it, guys. We're obviously going to talk about the VARsical game. We're going to talk about a bit about the World Cup, because now we don't have a game for 6 weeks, and also revisit some of our pre-season predictions as well to see how we fared so far. So, Tom, I think the biggest news with the starting lineup was a shift in formation and back to the tried and trusted 5 at the back. What were your kind of thoughts when the team news was dropped?
I wasn't against it, to be honest. I think if we'd have played 4 and played how we've been playing, we'd have got battered. So I was all for a bit of change, just something a bit different. Arsenal would have prepared for 4 at the back, I suppose, and yeah, why not? Nothing to lose. I wasn't against it. I didn't mind Totti being back in. The front 2, which was a bit different because we're getting absolutely nothing from out wide. I was a bit disappointed Nunes wasn't fit to start, or potentially fit to start, whether he had, one eye on the World Cup, I'm not sure. But I wasn't too nonplussed by it. I thought it was all right. Yeah,
Andy, how about yourself? I mean, I guess the 5 at the back's a big thing around Wolves. It's going to be for a while until we can, well, frankly, play the back 4, isn't it? So there's always going to be talk about, should we play in a 4 or 5, or however you look at it. But it did feel a little bit more right, would you say?
Yeah, it absolutely did. I mean, going into the Arsenal game, the form they've been in, I felt like we needed an extra centre-half, and I felt like we needed an extra man in the middle. So it made sense to go 5-3-2, to be perfectly honest. I think it was the right decision to make. It does feel like it's a bit of a millstone, doesn't it, though, for Wolves? I'm almost surprised we haven't gone back to this a little bit earlier in the day. It makes me wonder how much Lopetegui has had. Maybe he's had a word, I don't know, because he has persisted with a 4, even at times where you think, we could possibly do with that extra man at the back.
Yeah, because even in, let's say, this run of games under Davis, we very much kept a 4-3-3. There's been no real deviation of it, regardless of suspensions, injuries. It's very much been set, whereas this almost felt like kind of a throwback to last season, didn't it? And yeah, Tom, you're completely right. My heart slightly sank. It was going to sink whatever the options, but when and we'll talk about Guedes and Adama later on, but it didn't necessarily inspire a lot of hope, because they're literally the only 2 options we had, really, because Swang wasn't in the squad at all.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, no natural striker. It doesn't. Let's face it. It does not matter what we do up there. We're pretty blunt without a number 9. So do what you want. It doesn't matter. Just it's one of those dartboard things, isn't it? It doesn't make any difference. Just chuck a load of players up there and see what happens, because nothing else is working. So that's how depressing it is at the moment.
Yeah, and I don't want to sound too savage against either of them, because I definitely think Guedes had some really strong highlights in the game, but it does almost feel like a bit of a tombola selection in terms of who's going to be up front, because you're right, it almost doesn't matter, because none of them do what's needed. And there were points in the game itself, guys, weren't there, where we looked tidy. Like, it wasn't just a complete backs to the wall, scrapping it. We moved the ball really nicely when we could. Obviously, we're playing a bit defensively, but we were looking really strong on the counter attack, and particularly in the first half. There was about 3 or 4 really, really solid breaks where, on another day, we could have been challenging them, maybe creating a goal scoring opportunity, a bit of a clear cut one, if we actually had a striker.
Yeah, I think the lack of a striker was very telling. Just playing 2 midfielders up front, that's all they were, really, wasn't it? It was just midfielders and defenders on the pitch for us. I think we definitely did the right thing, though, in not meeting them too high up the pitch. I know the fans were getting a bit antsy about, the whole getting to and fuck them off chants and all that. But ultimately, I feel that by not meeting them until they came into our half, we allowed us to try and play on the counter a lot better. Some of those balls that were coming across the top, so Adama could run onto it or Guedes could get onto it, I thought that was definitely the only way we were going to get anything out of this game. If you go toe-to-toe with Arsenal, they will tear you apart, which is what they did in the second half when things changed a little bit.
Yeah, I think one of the things that particularly impressed me was, obviously we were playing that extra 10 yards further back and having an additional player in the defensive third at the back. But it's when we got those balls in tight areas, particularly in the first half, we actually kept it. Particularly Bueno, who has been sort of a bit of a shining light under Davis, but you wouldn't necessarily attribute him with the defensive side of the game. But there was a point where I think he had more tackles than most of the other Wolves players combined at one point, but he just kept the ball so diligently and not doing anything stupid with it. I thought there was a real maturity and a real game plan with a lot of those players today, and not just Bueno.
He marshalled Saka really well. And Saka's a good player. He's a good player, and he marshalled him really well. I don't think it's a coincidence that fullbacks suddenly look a lot better when they've got another defender behind them when we're playing in a 3. I don't think that's a coincidence, to be honest. But
no,
credit where credit's due. Individually, they did well. That storming run in the first half down the line, really good. And Semedo, to be fair to me, he's had a bad season, but he was getting forward quite well. I think two or three of our counters came from him sprinting out of the back as well. And he's a wing back. He's not a fullback, I don't think. I know there's that debate before, but I know his numbers aren't great going forward, but he looks a lot better defensively when he's a wing back. If that makes sense.
I think it's interesting with the back 5 how many. Obviously, the additional player in there gives pretty much all of those players better safety and numbers, and it almost doesn't matter if you're the wing back or you're the centre half in that situation. Having that extra protection just seems to give them so much more security. I mean, you look at like Toti Gomez as well, who I thought had a really strong game as well. You're right, in the same way, Bueno looks better defensively. So did he, because he had Bueno one side of him, so he wasn't getting sucked into a channel too much, and he had Kilman the other side of him as well. One of our best breaks, I guess, was within the first couple of minutes, and I think for a lot of us, we sort of missed it, but in hindsight, this was a real sliding doors moment in the game, and it's a bit of a two-parter in terms of the incident. It's the Guedes offside/penalty decision. So to kind of give it a breakdown for people who haven't watched it, because of course you'd be tuning into us if you've not seen the game, of course. Essentially, he was played through in the middle of the park by Adama Traore, who I think had a fantastic game. I love him. But I'll digress.
With you on that. Yeah.
Just absolutely my sort of player. I love him. But he was initially flagged for a late offside, despite the fact it appears that he was behind the ball. So I don't know quite how he could be offside. And then he was bundled over incredibly clumsily in the box, very clearly by the last man, in my opinion, denying a goal scoring opportunity. He kind of got brushed away in real time. I think it was only at half time, when most of us were going to get it come through on sort of the Sky Sports Twitter replays, we realised that there were two really shocking decisions.
It's just absolute stonewaller. Yeah. It's an absolute. I still don't get the explanation from VAR either. There's no way they looked at that, because the play started within 20 seconds maybe. You know what it's like with VAR, especially with close ones. It takes 2-3 minutes at the best of times.
I think what it is, it's to do with the fact that the offside was given. So if the lines were never flagged for it, it would most likely would have gone down as a penalty. But because he calls it, that effectively becomes dead play. But what is the point in having VAR if not to correct these, quite frankly, clear and obvious errors within the game? I mean, on the first visual that you put up, Rich, you could see that the linesman was a good 2-3 yards behind play. It was just clear fucking guesswork. He hasn't got a clue whether or not anyone's onside or offside there. He's just put it up just because he gets paid to do something, so I may as well do it.
Yeah, we live in an age where we literally have this technology where, to be fair, I remember the attack, and we broke at a really good pace. Like, it's not necessarily the linesman's fault he was a yard behind the play because of how we broke, but just don't raise your flag.
Because
you've got to be sure,
up, doesn't it?
You've got to be sure.
Yes, but all that will happen is in that instant that he keeps his flag down. He's starts saying into refs, it's tight. VAR are going to check it anyway. They'll check the penalty and then check if it's. I don't understand why it has to be. It's dead because we thought he could have been offside, rather than the major incident in the play. The critical point isn't the offside. That's not the thing that's defining that phase of play. It's the potential penalty, and to not just go, well, hang on, let's review the penalty incident. Do we think it's a penalty? Yes or no? I don't know, frankly, how Stuart Atwell missed it in the first place.
Mm-hmm. It's pathetic.
It's not like the ball's carried away from him or anything. He's just clipped him by the back of the heels and just bundled into him. And I've watched enough clumsy Wolves defenders in my time, and I just can't get my head around it. And then go, well, you know what? Actually, if he penalty, but it's going to be dependent on if he's onside or not, rather than, well, it doesn't matter because of something that happened 30 yards, which we still got wrong. And
the dead play argument I don't get, because he put his flag up miles after the actual foul.
It wasn't straight away.
It was live. The play was live when the foul happened, so I don't get that dead play bollocks. That's rubbish. And they're saying that they can play on. Oh, but in case it's a goal, is a penalty not almost equal to a goal anyway? Why do you make the difference? What's the difference in one and the other? A penalty is almost as good as a goal, or it's 0.9 is it on XG? So I don't get any argument that's been put forward for it. There's absolutely no debate that it's a foul first and foremost. We've got done on that one. That was a joke.
Yeah, I think, but it sounds bonkers, but it didn't really feel like it at the time. It just felt like, he's offside. And even, looking back, watching the game back, in real time, it wasn't like Sky Sports flagged it, in the 8th minute or whatever minute it was. It kind of just went, he's offside. Oh, it looks a bit tight. Anyway, game's moved on and blah, blah, blah. And you say, it's frustrating that two lines of officiating, I can, the on-field referee and Dino on VAR, it is a really shocking decision in hindsight. And I'm not saying it came to bite us on the arse, but it was a real sliding doors moment for us, because we did struggle to create chances, as we've kind of alluded to. We weren't playing with a striker, but we did give it our best go. And I thought Guedes, rather frustratingly, seems to be picking up a bit of form now we go into a 6-week break. But he looked really sharp, and as I say, the player most likely to do something, which I've been really critical of him on here recently in terms of, he looks like a bit of a ghost. Whereas I can still see why people criticise him, but I thought he had a really good game yesterday.
Yep, completely agree. A lot of the people around me were pissing and moaning about him because it's the way he looks.
He
When
doesn't
something
look like
doesn't go his way, it's shoulders down. But to be perfectly honest, I don't really give a shit about that. I want you to pick the ball up and run with it, and that's your job. The way you look doing it, you don't need to smile and be happy. Like, it's not really interesting. But I do know that fans do care about that kind of thing. It's frustrating there because he was, far and away our only hope of getting a goal. He looked so much better than anyone else when it came to it. And I know that Stu has moaned quite a few times that the problem with Guedes is we haven't played him in his position, because where he was most successful at Valencia was as this shadow striker, second striker. And you could see yesterday, if he was up top with someone who was like an actual number 9, I think you could really get something out of Guedes. I think he looked like he was just missing someone alongside him, and not Adama Traore, who ran around like a headless chicken, to be perfectly honest again.
Yeah, I mean, I was going to say with Adama, that there was about 3 occasions, pretty much all in the first half, where he just tried to just run through a small box of Arsenal players, and it was the most.
Never had the ball in possession either. He kept trying to do it without any control of the ball. It's pathetic.
Yeah, and it was just so frustrating, and I can see why people have made sort of shouts for Guedes to be a second striker, as it were, because there were points in where, like, some of the positions he was taking up, it was like, that's fantastic. If only there was someone like, on the penalty spot. And the amount of times in that game where it was just like, hey, if we actually had like someone half competent up front, we could make it really interesting for Arsenal.
Yeah, definitely. It sums it up at the end. It was a player jumping right to the end. It sums it right at the end for me. Like, I think it was they gave the ball away. It was really late on. I think it was nearly added time. They gave the ball away. It was 3-on-2. He didn't draw his man, and then he played it behind Pedence. So Pedence had to check his run, and he hit it at the goal. And that's our attacking in a nutshell generally. And Adama's just obviously the most obvious, site of that almost. There's just no fluency up top, and obviously he's probably the worst culprit. He's the type of player who you want to maybe bring on when you're trying to hold on to a game and get further up the pitch, because that's all he's good at.
Yeah.
He can just get he could get you like 50 yards up the pitch, almost like a running back in the NFL, because you can't expect any productivity from him whatsoever. It's just gone. Literally, there's no point. He's like get off your seat type player, but is he? Because you know what's going to happen at the end of it.
Yeah, I think I saw an interesting tweet yesterday. I think it was from friend of the show, Dan Butler, saying, is there any part of Adama's game that he's improved in 4 seasons at Wolves?
Because it's the exact opposite, isn't it? It's gone backwards.
Yeah, he's basically the exact same player, but the league / opposition are cottoning on to some ways to deal with him. And it's incredibly frustrating when you look at it like that. But again, with Guedes, one of the things I think, Andy, I noticed, he's right, he doesn't seem like he ever really gets angry. And I think he just looks kind of a little bit, not unemotional, just a bit meh about it, melancholy,
disinterested almost, rather than
I was going to say, I've used the word melancholy, and I'm now going to use juxtaposition. I feel like I'm reaching out to a certain brand of person here, so apologies. But I think, like, let's say you compare it to the end of the game when Bueno got booked for dissent, and I'm not going to lie, part of me loved that, because it was a soft free kick. It was out of frustration, and the ball was just sitting there, and he just goes, fuck it, and just levers it. And I've almost got a level of respect for, he's going to get, he's going to get booked for it, but he's just so annoyed. It's like, in my head, Bueno, he's got 2 options in that heat of the moment. He either kicks the ball or he kicks the player he's fouled, and the better option of the 2 is the ball. So, I think he's gone in the right direction, in my opinion, on that one. But yeah, Guedes, rather frustratingly, is finding a bit of form just as we have a break. But he was a bit of a shining light for me in terms of another player. Again, we joked about it before a bit, but Adama Traore. Just how refreshing
great.
is it? How refreshing is it to see a midfielder who's just different to what we've had the last 4 seasons?
It's what
Just
we've been
covers so
missing,
much
isn't
ground.
it?
Yeah.
It
Yeah,
really
it
does.
eats up the
Incredible.
yards. It just absolutely eats up the yards, whether it's pressing or even carrying the ball forward. I mean, like you said, on that Guedes one, the offside one, it was him out wide. You know, I'll put good money on him getting 2 yellows at some point this season.
Oh yeah.
He loves a late tackle, or he presses so fast that if the guy's just spun it around him, he's done. He's got nothing. But do we mind that too much?
No.
I think we're too nice. I think
Yeah.
centre half sum that up for me. We're just too nice. So it's nice to have a little bit of bite in there, and like I say, just some energy, just some legs. It's just good to see.
And
Yeah.
he nearly recreated his goal in midweek as well, which I quite liked. And I'm sort of hoping that becomes a bit like a special move, Andy, where just like he just because again it's
15 and yeah.
And my thought process and a lot of the comparisons that have been made to him and Dendoncker. And don't get me wrong, Donk, you know, loved him. He's moved on now. I was going to say to a better place, but to another place, and seems to be thriving. But he just gives us that bit of energy that you miss from Dendoncker, and he's ironically getting in those same positions as Dendoncker in terms of like that right hand side of the pitch near the edge of the box. But I can't imagine Dendoncker trying to whip one in, you know, try and bend one in the far post in the same way. So again, a bright spot in the last 6 weeks, in my opinion.
He has. He's been fantastic. And I know they say you should never fall in love with a lone player, but I think everyone has around the Molyneux. Like, if God forbid he doesn't sign for us in the summer, I think there'll be some like genuinely sad people around the club. He seems quite an infectious dude, and you could see when he scored his goal that everyone within the club seemed to be as happy for him as he was having actually scored it himself.
I would say a midfield counterpart who did struggle, and Christopher Rogers on our YouTube page. Big thanks to everyone who's watching live and on repeat, on demand. We want to view it. Says Martino was poor yesterday. Again, the other end of the spectrum is Martino seems to have really struggled this season, as have many, but those legs seem to be aging quite a lot at an alarming rate, sadly, at the moment, aren't they?
Yeah.
He's every day he's 35 years or whatever he is at this point. He's not the force he was even 6 months ago, let alone 2-3 years.
Yeah, it's a shame, really. We all love him. Let's face it. He doesn't owe us anything. He's been brilliant, one of the best players I've seen in a Wolves shirt. But if you sat back now, what does he offer you on the pitch now? I find it hard to pick anything. He keeps the ball moving a little bit, but if you're a relegation dogfight, you don't want or need that. You got to have something a bit different, and I think he's the odd one out. If we're going to, depending on what formation Lopetegui plays, he's the one that misses out.
And very much so. And considering the form of Neves this season, the form of Traore this season, and hopefully Nunes coming back injury free, that feels like such a more balanced lineup and gives you so much more dynamism while still giving you say, the ball protection, the defensive protection as well. It does sort of feel like it's slowly coming to an end, which will be a shame because he is legitimately one of the greatest players to ever wear Wolves shirt, and not lightly saying. In terms of chances Wolves had, I was trying to rack my head around this because it felt like we had a couple of really fantastic breaks, but it felt like a game of half chances, whereas Arsenal pretty consistently were creating good solid chances, whether they were offside, because I know they got the offside one, they hit the crossbar as well. It did feel like a lot of our chances didn't ever really threaten And I think it sort of showed very much by our shots on targets by the end of the game, unfortunately.
Yeah, I mean, just roll back any other pod from any other game, and we'll be saying exactly the same thing. It's just we can't create good chances. It's just fact. And that's his biggest. That's the thing he's got to work on the most, isn't it? Over this 6 weeks, trying to get this team to fashion decent chances, pick the right pass, have a strategy to our build up other than just counter attacking. It's the thing that will keep us up or send us down ultimately, unfortunately.
Yeah,
sorry, Rich. I was going to say it felt very much like right at the start of the season. Everyone was playing quite decent football, but all of our chances were coming from 18, 20, 25 yards. That's sort of what it felt like yesterday. We never really got into the box to create anything.
No.
And that's why Ramsdale ended up having a pretty easy night of it, I think.
Yeah, I think from my recollection, he had maybe 2 shots properly on target. He had the free kick, which again was from quite a difficult position to score from anywhere. And I think Podence had a chance quite late on, which went pretty much down the barrel as well. And it was so unfortunate because obviously we'd held out until half time and more than held our own, in my opinion. And then it kind of the wheels did slightly come off, particularly after the first goal, which was frustrating because how preventable do you think it was? I mean, Tom, you're saying about our defenders get a bit of push over a lot of the time. Do you think Collins in particular should have done a bit of better tracking on the first goal, maybe?
Yeah, it's Collins' fault, I think. Unfortunately, I don't think he had a terrible game. I just think his confidence is just shot. Yeah, he's I think he's too square, isn't he? And he just lets his man go, and that was it. Then it was curtains. Yeah, I don't think anyone else could have really done too much. Really, he's whipped across the face really quickly. You could maybe pin it on one of the midfielders to pick up Odegaard, maybe. But yeah, it's the only error there for me is Collins.
I think as soon as Vieira's broke the line there, it's pretty much game over. And to be fair, you look at it from an Arsenal point of view, it's a fantastically crafted goal in terms of the movement and the flick over the top to get it to Vieira. And a lot of the commentators were very much lauding Vieira's clip across and actually being able to cut Sarr out of the game. And let's say a ball across the 6-yard box, it's only going to win one way, unfortunately, with all our players running towards it. And it was frustrating because the brutal fact of the matter is we don't score goals. So as soon as we'd conceded one, it was might as well head home in a way. But we did still try, and I think we still very much persevered when the second one came. And it was unfortunate in a way because it was on. I'm going to butcher the pronunciation now, and I was trying all day. Lembasika?
Close. Lembakisa, is it?
Lembakisa, yeah. There we go. Arguably at fault in terms of. No, I feel far too critical for someone who's literally making his Premier League debut, but just that awareness, just to make sure you clear your lines, and then no one quite knew what to do. Collins arguably could have done a bit more in terms of blocking it, and then we just could not clear our lines again, unfortunately, for the second goal.
But I think one thing though, and this counts for the first goal as well. If you watched Arsenal in their warm-up, that was exactly the kind of stuff they were doing, trying to overload down the flanks and get it into the middle. And their movement, whilst it was brilliant, it was rehearsed.
Yeah.
They knew what they were doing, and we never got to grips with that. And like the amount of times I've watched us in our warm-up, and I've said this time and again to the bloke next to me, you see the warm-up, they do this thing where they pass it to the one coach, then they pass it to the goalkeeping coach, then they shoot. They do that every time, and I've never seen us do that in a match.
Score that goal.
Never seen us do it once. So I think, well, why are they training that? But when you look at when Arsenal train and then they actually do it on the pitch, it's just a world of difference. Specifically for the second goal, though, I said this in the group chat last night. The problem wasn't, I don't think, the defence as such. It was the fact that we then overloaded on the attackers. By the time the second goal had come on, we only had Neves and Traore in the middle, and we were overrunning in the middle of the park. So to be perfectly honest, it was Steve Davis's fault, no one else's. He's the one who fucked that up by making those substitutions.
Yeah, and part of me feels a bit sorry for him because he's between a rock and hard place. Because I've lambasted him saying we ain't scoring goals, so you 1-0 down at home. We ain't got a game for 6 weeks. We need something from it. We're bottom of the pissing league at the moment, so he must turn around and look at that bench and go, "Where's my goal coming from?" But at the same time, you're right. As soon as it felt very disjointed after we made those subs, and any of the control that we did have with the formation seemed to be lost. You could argue Arsenal stepped it up a gear, but I think they were very measured throughout the game. But we didn't help ourselves in that situation, unfortunately. And you've just got to hope that, I was going to say, after Christmas, as it were, that things do improve from that point of view. But it did kind of feel that this was a bit of a different kind of performance, and I don't think we deserved a draw, if I'm going to be brutally honest. I think Arsenal were worthy of the win, chiefly because we didn't necessarily create enough. But we definitely looked a lot better than we did, let's say, in the end of days under Bruno, would you say?
I'd say so. Yeah. I mean, again, the banging same drum again and again and again. Obviously, up front is just it just needs some serious work. But there are positives, like we say. Guedes seems to be performing pretty well. I think Traore looks like a real find. Bueno looks great, and I think they'll do well to dislodge him. So there are positives there. Where at the end of the West Ham game, to be honest, there wasn't many at all.
No.
So I think there is something there to work on. I mean, touch on this. I've just got to make this one point. The fitness of our fullbacks is fucking shite.
Yes,
it's genuinely embarrassing. I can't remember the last time one of them got through 90 minutes.
Yeah,
they always get subbed. Right, Aït-Nouri, Johnny, Semedo, they cannot get through 90 minutes. It's an absolute joke. And I know Bruno made the point last season about he's always making a sub at fullback. I mean, I don't get it. And you've got Bueno, who's a kid, and he's playing every game. He's playing 90 minutes, and I guarantee he covers more ground than they've covered in each game this season. He's sprinting for everything right until the final minute, and none of them can. They either pull up, or they have a tweak, or they get cramp, or it's just that needs looking at. If we're not going to replace them, their fitness needs serious work. And luckily, they're not going to the World Cup, are they? So I just run them into the ground for a couple of weeks is the first thing I'd do.
I think that I made a point last week on the pod that if I was Lopetegui, the first thing I'd be doing is just making sure those players are fit, because they simply are not. We pick up far too many injuries. We pick up, say, Aït-Nouri's a bastard for it. He's getting cramp. And with respect, you shouldn't be getting cramp in the middle of a league game. No. I understand it in FA Cup semi-final, it's gone into extra time. Yeah, fair enough. But you're right. Just it doesn't feel. I don't have the stats to back it up, and this is where we'll get massively proven wrong. That they cover awful lots of ground. Particularly when you look at the likes of Johnny. Sometimes I know he was injured as well. Even Semedo, that it's not like they're getting to the byline every 5 minutes.
No.
And it's really indicative, because we, compared to, let's say, Nuno, or even parts and Bruno, those were real assets for us in terms of stretching and being the being that additional forward player and allowing our inside forwards to actually come inside, because we had the pace and the dynamism on the wings via our wing backs, whereas now they almost seem to be a bit too scared to go forward, but not good enough defensively to actually stay back, and we're not good enough to be able to contribute it. So it's definitely an area that I think we need to look to improve upon fitness in general, but I think the fullbacks need to offer more overall. I'm scared to do it, because, well, it looks horrible. But the league table, so yes, we will be bottom at Christmas. 10 points from 15 games. We are 4 points off the bottom, 17th as it were. I don't think all hope's lost though yet. I'm still hanging in there in terms of that. There's definitely 3 worse teams than Wolves, so long as we can actually work out what we're doing in terms of finding a striker.
I think so. I'm a lot more optimistic than I was pre-Lopetegui appointment. If we pre-Lopetegui, I thought it was nailed on if we didn't get a decent manager. So I'm a bit more optimistic. I did a little bit before I came on. I've only done 14 games, so annoyingly. But at the back end of 14 games last season, we only got 11 points. So we're only 1 point better off than what we've got from our first, for sort of 15 now, let's say. 14 games into last season, Newcastle had 7 points and no wins. And so Newcastle finished 11th last season with 49 points. Bear in mind, they had 7 points after 14 games. And we finished 10th on 51 points, and that was 11 points out of our last 14 games. And that gives me hope. I know you could say Newcastle signed a few players, but for me, they only signed 2 top quality players.
Yeah.
And a few average players. And from my opinion, we had a stronger base now than what they had back then. And that 11 points we had was with a striker, albeit one that was bang out of form, but we had a striker and we haven't had one so far this season. So I think there's still hope for me. It's only 4 points off Everton, and Everton are shite. So
yeah, I do sort of agree with you there, Tom. It's frustrating as fuck because you look at the team and no football isn't played on paper, but I would back our team against almost everybody in this league bar the top 6 or 7. There's no one that I would really fear on our day. But our day has been so fucking sporadic for the last 18 months that relegation is a genuine possibility here. And I know you didn't say it wasn't, but it is something that obviously Lopetegui is going to have to think long and hard about progressing this team forward in January. And I would hope that Fosun had, they've brought him in with the promise of spending some money like Newcastle did. And I think that's the only way we're going to get out of this is bringing in a good sort of 3-4 quality players.
Yeah, we'll going to take a short break, guys, because we're kind of barreling on to the next segment of the show, to be honest. And so we're going to take a short break, quick word from the sponsors, and talk about a little bit about Lopetegui, World Cup, and review our Fancast predictions. We'll catch you in a second, guys.
Hi all, Gully from Wolves Fancast here, and just like all of you long-suffering Wolves fans, I know exactly what it feels like to be lacking a creative spark here, some outside-of-the-box thinking there, but our sponsors Pixel Yeti Media are here to help. They're a creative agency that cover all of your web design, branding and marketing needs, with our very own WolvesFancast.com, a fine example of their work. So much so that I hear Jeff Shee is looking to do a deal this summer. For now, it's back to the team to ask just where the Diogo Jota money is gone. We may have just had our answer.
Hello, welcome back, everybody. As we've kind of talked a lot about Lopetegui, but he is now in Wolverhampton. And my first question to you guys is, what local haunts do you think he's already checked out?
He's definitely been to the Gifford, surely.
Do you think he's already been on the throne?
It's a rite of passage, isn't it? Like everyone's got to sit on there. Even you've sat on there, Rich. So I think he's definitely done it. Yeah.
Pen Tandoori, do we reckon? Not for curry first night.
Yeah.
Why
I was
not?
going to say, I could imagine them being fume already. So,
Of course, yeah.
He's got they'll have gone there for a spot of lunch, I can imagine. But no, he is. Is he technically now Wolves manager, or is it officially tomorrow?
I think it's tomorrow, isn't it? Is it the 14th, the Monday?
Yeah. But it was interesting sort of seeing him on the pitch on Saturday, but him kind of going around the club. I think it was on Friday, introducing himself to everyone. And I don't know, this might be a bit revisionist of me, but he does seem to carry himself with a different kind of authority to what Bruno Lage did in terms of how he's kind of acting with some of the players, partly because he might know them from different areas. Obviously, he's worked with Neves previously, and that was quite a nice little moment caught on camera, I thought, seeing them two together. Yeah, definitely carries himself quite well, I think.
100%. You could tell he was the boss. As soon as he walked in that building, he was boss, like straight away. It sums up for me the Steve Davis thing. It was about a 40-second clip. And bear in mind, Davis is the acting manager of Wolves at the time. And it looked like a TA being spoken to by a guy from Ofsted. Like, he just looks like the boss. And Davis was like, oh, you know, he looked like a little frightened frog. And I got nothing but respect for Davis. But you could just tell he was like authoritative with respect as well. And he seems to really, I don't know, he seems to want to really try and build relationships with the players. There's a little bit with Hodge that he was talking about, you know, and he's only like a youth team player. Oh, fantastic performance last night. You're getting ready for the game, you know, little bits like that, which I thought was good. Yeah, I like it already.
I thought even him coming out before the match yesterday and doing a lap of honour.
Yeah.
Like, I mean, that takes some bollocks, that does. Most
time,
managers come out, they'll just wave, maybe walk to the halfway line. That's about it. Yeah. But no, it's like, no, fuck this. I'm walking around the whole of the Molyneux and you're all going to see my face. Yeah, fair play to him.
I was going to say, when was the last time we had a manager introducing themselves on the pitch? In my head, was it Glenn Hoddle? Because I don't know if we did it with Saunders.
It could have been. I don't.
Yeah.
You know, we're talking.
Saunders felt like he came in the back door, and then first game was an away game, if I remember rightly. Yeah. So yeah.
Like, you know, we're talking managers in recent years who have, let's say, joined mid-season. We didn't do it with Lambert. I know that much. Say before that, Jacket joined at the start of the season. Saunders, I don't remember happening, but I've got a very vivid memory of something similar happening with Glenn Hoddle. Hopefully it turns out.
Terry Connor got announced and gave a little wave. I seem to remember. As cringy as it was.
He was internal anyway, wasn't he? So
a new manager.
Yeah, I can imagine Terry Connor probably shat himself at that, to be honest. It is? Oh, shit. But yeah, I know, like, I mean, it's first impressions and, you know, everything's edited, blah, blah, blah. But he does seem to, he is the boss. And, you know, I was impressed by it. And don't get me wrong, he's got a lot of work to do. And fingers crossed, either, you know, we can get in a striker. You know, a lot of the people on our YouTube comments saying, yeah, he won't have come here if he hasn't got money. He won't have come if, you know, we've not been promised to, you know, bring people in, you know, on loan or anything like that. So hopefully, fingers crossed, there's people lined up. No, we were linked with, I believe, is it Real Madrid? Mariano Diaz for 30 million. So I don't know whether that's kind of putting two and two together and get, you know, coming out 5. I'd be interested to see if a club could do anything to get back Fabio Silva, personally. I know, I can't remember, Andy, which side of the fence you fall on in terms of whether you'd recall him early or let him just have this full pre-season, regardless of Wolves' predicament.
I mean, part of me says, like, leave him there because he's getting minutes, he's playing well, and he seems to be mostly happy other than his outburst the other day. But at the same time, I think I'd rather see him here doing it. It's a tough one. Like, what do you do? Is it for the player's development or is it for the club's benefit? If he's just going to come here and warm the bench, there's no point in bringing him back. So I'm going to stay on the fence, to be perfectly honest with you.
Killing me. Tom, how about you?
I think we'll utilise the loan market a little bit more. I don't think you're bringing a technical director, and he is a technical director, this guy. I don't care what they've dressed him up as. He's a technical director,
advisor.
Isn't he? Or sport, bollocks. He's a sporting director, isn't he? You don't bring someone in like that unless you want to, you know, increase the recruitment drive a little bit. Fabio one, tough one, really. I think we'd be in a better position if we had him. I'm not saying we'd be, you know, mid-table or anything like that. But I think we'd probably be in a better position if we'd had him here. Whether his development would have been better if it had been here is probably arguable, because I think he needs to be at top. A striker when they're developing needs to be at a team at the top of a league, whatever league that is, to find their feet. I think and get a bit of confidence with goals, so that it's working in that regard. I'd keep it on the back burner as a last resort if we couldn't get anyone else in.
Yeah, well, don't worry, Bell might come back fit. We can probably a good point to talk about into a bit of World Cup chat, lads, because I know Wolves aren't playing for 6 weeks, but there's going to be an awful lot of bloody football happening. Do either of you two guys have World Cup fever yet? Because I don't yet, and I'm really upset by it.
Yeah, it's the fact that it's nearly Christmas and we're talking about the World Cup just feels completely wrong to me. It's difficult because we're in the throes of a miserable season to then switch gears completely and talk about international football for a month. It just feels wrong. I can't get over the fact that it's the middle of the season and this is going on now.
Yeah, it's surreal. It counts massively in our favour, though. I will say that.
Yeah,
I think this is huge. If we didn't have this, I'd be really worried. He's got 6 weeks to work with him now, and I think it's really good that not many of our players have gone.
Yes,
I think he's got the whole defence to work with. 6 weeks. He's got all of that back line to work with, barring Sarr, and most of the forward players as well. To be fair, I mean, Jimenez is done. Wang, we don't play that much, and I don't think it matters so much that Neves and Nunes aren't there, so they're going to fit in any system he plays, and it doesn't matter.
That's sort of my logic. I'm not necessarily worried about Neves not being around for the next 6 weeks because he's our best player by a country mile. And I say whether we go for however you dress it up in midfield, whether it's a midfield 3, a midfield 2, a pivot, a diamond, any other Football Manager formation you can think of that I can drop in, there'll be a place for Ruben Neves, and you could say it helps that they've worked together previously, right at the front end of Neves' career. But you're right, I think working with that defence is vital, particularly you say the wing backs, having that hopefully extra focus. With Wolves, though, there are a few players going, as we've said. Nunes is going, Neves is going, Wang's going, Jimenez is going. You've got to hope so anyway, because he hasn't been here recently. But who are you interested to sort of see? Because I get a lot of... Look, I know Jimenez is still fondling a lot of Wolves fans' heart and always will be. And relationships aren't exactly... They're a bit rocky at the moment. But I would get so much joy if if Jimenez actually performed at this World Cup and scored a goal, being a Wolves player scoring a goal in the World Cup. I think it'd be bloody fantastic.
I mean, I think it's good to bring back a bit of form here. I can't see it personally, but yeah, in theory, any player that performs well in the World Cup, you know what it's like. They come back and they're full of beans. Got to hope for that. So yeah, but I'll be keeping an eye on Portugal for obvious reasons. And obviously the Wolves lads. But there's always one or two just breakout players that I'm always fascinated by, and they come from some random country and they just come out of nowhere. So I'm always interested to see what the next sort of Milan Barros is or whoever it is.
Don't ask me why. Genuinely, there is no explanation for this. I can see Juan getting a couple of goals. I don't even know if he actually starts, his first choice for South Korea. But because of World Cup tournament football being what it is, I can just imagine him just getting the odd goal here and there, in just like a couple of like really scrappy goals, and all of a sudden, they're in the last 16 and he's got 4 goals. It's like, how's that happened? And we have Juan Menu again.
He's done quite well for Korea, though, hasn't he? Whenever he's gone over there and he's played a game, more often than not, we've heard positive things about his performances. And I think without Son being there, there's going to be a lot more onus on Hwang. So I do think that there is a decent possibility that he'll get some game time and hopefully get a goal or two. And I think he does need to get away from the club a little bit, because we've got to the point with Hwang where he could score a hat-trick and he would still get abuse from some of our fans. So I think a break from the club will probably do him better than anyone else, to be honest.
Yeah, I mean, I'm interested. I'm interested to see. I think because of, I guess, his lack of history in a way, or very minimal compared to Neves, who and Jimenez, who obviously there's been for so long. I can't want him to do something to bring home. But for you guys, just out of curiosity, who do you think's actually going to win the World Cup?
Probably
Say-
France. Probably France. I think well, they've got such a strong team that it's always difficult to look past them personally.
I'll go Brazil.
Yeah. I was going to go Brazil. I mean, when I looked at their squad, it was like, well, they've got a lot of good forwards, and they've got a lot of good midfielders, and a lot of good defenders, and a weird amount of good goalkeepers as well. It's so, like, apart from the fact, I'm not thinking they've still managed to call up Danny Alves.
Yeah, I think
Amazing.
Yeah, mate.
39 years old.
Yeah. It's ridiculous. Imagine having like Vinicius running at him in training.
I did see a wonderful. It might have actually been on TalkSport, to be fair, saying, how bad was Emerson Royale be for Spurs that Danny Alves at his age is getting in the Brazil squad ahead of him.
Oh, he is.
But
He is fucking dreadful. The Spurs fans absolutely hate him. I think they cheered him off, I think, yesterday.
yeah,
He's absolute dog shit. Yeah, I wouldn't have him if we were in the Championship. He's that bad.
He does make me feel better about our wing back options, which I appreciate are limited at best. So I don't know. I'm hoping somehow in like the next week I really kind of get into that World Cup bit. I don't know whether it's the weather or what. To be honest, it just doesn't quite have the same feel as yet. Maybe I'll feel different when there's three
The
games.
game
of
starts. It's
football
when the game
today.
start, I think,
Yeah.
isn't it? I think they get a bit more excitement, a bit more buzz about it.
And I don't think it helps the venue, to be honest, for a multitude of reasons. But I think the lack of football history as much as anything else. I'm not going to go into, the corruption or, the mass deaths. As I say, I'm not going to go into it as a just dropping this really before Fancast lawyers get on the phone to me. But I think it doesn't help that there isn't. It doesn't feel like there's that shared football history within anything. Whereas even with, let's say, I don't know, Korea, Japan in 2002, yeah, there was a football culture there. It wasn't necessarily as widely known, but it kind of still went on. And I don't know. I think it just feels very sanitized.
It
just
it
a
feels
place-
political, doesn't it? It feels it's there
Yeah.
for a political reason and a financial reason more so than to spread football around the world or whatever bollocks that Sepp Blatter came out with before.
It just feels like they found a plot of land to put 10 stadiums.
It's very cynical, isn't it? The whole thing.
Yeah. I don't think that's massively helping with a lot of people's view on the World Cup, and I think the human rights element of a lot of it's. I'd like to think sort of thrown a bit of confusion. Trying to think of the right word, to be honest, but I think it is making it hard for a lot of football fans to deliberate whether you should or shouldn't watch it, which is a really shitty thing for something that can bring so much joy to so many people, and to have to be making these moral decisions off the back of it. But I feel like I've gone down a really heavy path where I didn't really want to. I just wanted to see if I could shoehorn the word Wangmania into conversation. So I'm going to just drag it back to silliness, to be honest. So, guys, you guys, Pricey and Matt, at the start of the seasons, we did a Fancast prediction show, which hopefully you remember because it wasn't too long ago. And I know we're not halfway through the season, but I did think we're at a really kind of bookmarked point of the calendar. And I kind of thought the other day, I wonder how we all did. And then I remember I did something that I don't usually do. During the show, I actually made notes. And I don't usually do this, so when I was sorting out some files for work, I managed to find my Fancast predictions Excel spreadsheet. And I thought, you know what would be fun? Seeing how we all did. So
I don't think that's fun.
I think it's very fun.
Yeah.
So the predictions we had was final league position, but league position, player for season, young player for season, surprise player for season, top goal scorer. Will Bruno be in charge all season? And first Twitter meltdown. So for those watching on YouTube, what I've tried to do is, I guess, put the most accurate answers there is at the moment. So obviously we're 20th at the moment. Are we all in agreement? Neves player for season so far?
Yeah, I think so.
I couldn't think of anyone who was less deserving, or more deserving even. Young player of the season. I know he's played 5 games. I've put down Bueno, and I've then put him down for the surprise player of the season. I think you could argue Traore could be in there for one of those categories. I'd happily take. Top goal scorer is Neves. Bruno. No, he is not in charge. First Twitter meltdown. I didn't have an exact date for this. I just put it was very quickly. I couldn't quite pinpoint when it was, to be honest, but I thought that kind of lays a bit of groundwork just to make sure we're all caught up on where we were. So, what did we say? Now I know, Tom, you're smiling at one of them because you did actually pick.
I got one right.
Yeah, so I've put on for anyone on YouTube our rough answers. So I thought, I don't think I necessarily still do. Me and you thought the same. We thought Wolves would finish 9th. Yeah, not off by this moment.
Quite a bit off at the minute.
Yeah.
There's still time there, Rich.
Yeah, we can climb. We can climb. Adam had 10th. Tom, you had 11th. Matt had 13th. So Matt's currently nearest out of somehow. Top goal scorer, me, Matt, and Andy. We all went for Jimenez for around 10 to 15 goals. Could still happen. I mean, Tom, you said 10 for Neto. And
it's not any better, is it?
Neto, so yeah, none of us have done particularly well on that one. Player for season, me, Andy, and Tom. Hey, we all got for a hat trick of Neves. A couple of the other shouts were for Neto and Kilman. So yeah, I think we did all right on that one. I think. So that was good. Young player for season, Tom. You were the only. Well, you had 2. But we'll give it you. You said Aït-Nouri or maybe Bueno. So I think that deserves kudos. Me and Matt went for Chem Campbell. Adam went for Aït-Nouri, and Andy went Gibbs White.
Who, to be fair, has probably been performing better than all of them.
Scored at the weekend.
He did.
Yeah.
He did.
I was going to say I'm no better because in terms of the surprise player, 4 of us went for Donk, Matt, Tom, Adam, and Andy, and I went Morgan Gibbs White. So I guess the surprise was they both left. Brilliant.
Yeah. And again, both of them have done really well for their respective clubs now. It's like then Donk has been getting applauded off the pitch. He used to get booed off. I thought that Bruno would make it through the season. At the start of the campaign, and so did Matt, but I don't think Tom and Andy, I don't think either of you two did from memory.
I'm not sure, but I think I said that next year. Yeah, I think I did the same. I think I said he'd go a bit in between seasons, I think, to be fair.
Yeah, so I think, none of us did great on that one. And Meltdown, I think we all had varying between basically a month and before the World Cup. I don't think we've hit full toxicity levels in terms of Wolves Twitter, but we've not quite gone Chernobyl Wolves, but we're getting there. The other side we had was for the Premier League predictions as well. So we had the champions, well, top of the league at this point, relegation zone, top goal scorer, our surprise team, either way, so whether it's positive or negative. One thing you'd love to see, which hasn't we've still got time on that one. Again, so champions, if the season ended today, would be Arsenal. Relegated 3 would be Forest, Southampton, and us, unfortunately. Top goal scorer, Haaland. Surprise team, I've wrote down 3. So Arsenal, positively. Newcastle, positively, you could say. I mean, I think some people thought they'd do well. Not everybody thought they'd do well. Just
they did not.
just to link it in. And West Ham, I think, have probably surprised a few people by how poor they've been this season. So in terms of fancast predictions, we all put down Man City to be champions. In terms of relegated 3, between the 5 of us, we only actually put down 3 teams. We only put down 5 teams: Bournemouth, Brentford, Leeds, Everton, and Southampton. So I'll tell you what, I don't think we're not doing too shabby. In terms of those teams, none of us have dropped a complete clanger just yet. Brentford, you could argue, might be a bit of a poor shout, but I don't know. I still think there's a bit of likelihood around Bournemouth and Southampton, definitely. None of us went for Haaland top goal scorer, despite us all predicting that Man City would win the league.
I think it's just because he's going to be rotated out. I was just adamant he was going to be rotated so much more than he has been. I mean, he might be back end of the season when the Champions League goes deep, but that was my thinking.
It's interesting because Martin in the YouTube comments said his surprise team was Fulham, and none of us put down Fulham or Forest actually, despite neither of us predicting them to get relegated, despite Fulham's history with coming up and yo-yoing back down, so to speak. In terms of surprise team, so I had Arsenal as my surprise team, so that's my little win. Matt and Tom, you guys had Spurs to do well, which I think they're pretty much they're sort of on course for where you'd expect them to be. Adam had Leicester to be poor, which I think up until 2 weeks ago, up until they played us, was a fair shout. And Andy, you had Newcastle to be poor.
I thought Newcastle were going to properly Newcastle it up like they always seem to, but things have really clicked there very, very well. And I don't think they've got a lot of players going to the World Cup either, so I think they're going to be in for a very good second half of the season after this second pre-season that they're going to get. Yeah, they've really surprised me.
Yeah, they've seemed to have really stepped up to. I thought they'd be challenging 8th rather than challenging top 4 at the moment. Do you guys want a revisit as one surprise thing you'd love to see happen? Just because I don't think we've actually ticked any of them off at the moment, but I think
I don't know. Mine. I think the tide's turning on mine.
It's going. It is going. So I had a goalkeeper to score. So I think that usually comes second half of the season anyway. So I'm still holding out hope. Matt had Wolves to be the highest Midlands team. I think we're still in the realms of possibility. Tom, you had media to turn on Klopp.
Yeah, it's getting that way. I think.
Yeah, I think a couple more defeats, and we could have.
It's getting really, really spiky.
Yeah,
really spiky. He's not taking anything at the moment.
Yeah,
that Deep Mohamed thing was an interesting one. He really lost it with that, which I didn't get either.
No, I mean, I don't particularly like Klopp, to be honest. So he's already lost me. But it'll be interesting if there's a wider narrative shift around him. But it still feels he's got a bit of that backing, hasn't he? Adam had Squill on the pitch. I've not been keeping up with animal pitch invasion. So no Squill watch for me, unfortunately. And Andy, I don't know what you had against Newcastle this day, but you had Eddie Howe to get sunburnt.
I think that's probably when he had to visit the evil overlords at some point.
So I don't think we're doing too awful. I mean, top goal scorer, we've dropped a clanger, haven't we, lads? But and league position as well. But I think on the whole, we're not doing too shabby. I think we've had our midpoint review. We're not having any mulligans or anything, so we'll pick it up at the end of the season, see if we've managed to get any closer with, frankly, any Wolves players have scored at this rate. I've got a couple of questions from Quick Corner for you both guys. So, John T asks, does Hulen see that performance of a back five with players at disposal and think this is the way forward this season, or does he back himself in recruitment to go for 4 from January onwards? I mean, do you see us sticking or twisting on 4 or 5?
Yeah, it's a good question. I mean, he's never played a 5, has he? I don't think wherever he's been, it was always
Not as
4.
far as I'm aware. I'm sure it's always been.
I think he needs to decide in these 6 weeks because he can't change system come January. He'll have to assess the players, and see what if he thinks they're good enough. I don't think he can judge it just on last night. I think he has to see him in training and make a call based on that. It's a tough one, but we've only got 3. We've got 3 centre halves really. I'm scared if you're counting him. It's a bit of a risk. So if he's going for 3 at the back, he needs to get another one in. I think he arguably needs to get another one in anyway. I think it'll be a case of just seeing what happens pre-season. But I think whatever he decides in pre-season, he probably needs to stick to, because I think he's got to get this 6 weeks just to drum in his ideas into the players and probably don't deviate from it really. I don't think he's got time to experiment when the league season hits.
No, I think he does need to very much make a decision quickly and be backed on it. And I almost don't mind if it's a 4 at the back or if it's a 5 at the back. I think either way, we do need reinforcements, whether it's in the central area or out wide, to really solidify things. Because, you saw with Newcastle that I know they did bring in Dan Burns, who they basically replaced their entire back 4, but I don't think Dan Burns was the game changer in that formation. It's only Kieran Trippier who actually helps solidify him at the back as much as he offers going forwards. So maybe something like, but there's a different catalyst that's not necessarily replacing the centre halves. And Andy, how about you? Do you think, have you got sort of a bit of a sway on this at the moment?
I think it's obviously going to come down to where we are come the 31st of January, to be honest. I think he will want to go with 4 at the back because obviously, as far as we're aware anyway, he will then be, playing his way, which is this back 4. But if he doesn't get the players in January, then I wouldn't be massively surprised to see him switch between the 2, depending on the opposition. But I thought we needed an extra centre half, when Bruno was here. I still think we need at least 1 centre half now. And I still think we need another fullback as well, because both Johnny and Semedo have been dog shit this season. So that defence needs some reconstruction for me.
Definitely. Last question, guys. Nice one to end on, I'm not going to lie. From Martin. What one thing in football that lots of people love, but you take the Cheryl Crow position of it not impressing you much? It could be skill, stadium player, coach, etc. For him, it's a Panenka penalty. So
isn't that's Shania Twain? That's
it
not
is.
Cheryl Crow.
I know.
Yeah.
It's he let himself down. But it's a good question. It
is a great question.
Mine is I hate the the apology celebration against your former club. Don't mind you not celebrating, score, whatever. I don't like the apologising for scoring part of the celebration. No, just it don't sit right with me. And you'll get some fair play, well done. No, either be professional and. If you love the club so much, you feel the need to apologise. Don't fucking leave in the first place, is what I'm saying. I didn't realise it got me so angry. But yeah, that's mine.
One thing that annoys me with goals anyway, when an opposition player scores a great goal against you and then you applaud it. So Tielemans, that fucks me off. I'm not applauding your goal. You've just scored against us. I'm offended. The one that doesn't impress me, though, a last-ditch tackle. All that tells me is you're not a good enough defender to be in the right place at the right time, that you've had to slide to win the ball back. So that doesn't impress me. That's just bad defensive work. Good. I think Gully will appreciate me for saying that.
I do. I've got a lot of time for that. For recovery tackle, yeah.
Don't like it.
Yeah, I can get on board with that.
Yeah, Gully had a good one for that. I think I saw in the comments. It was like a crossfield pass to someone just wide open. It's like, well, yeah. Saying that, I don't know if I could do it, but bloody hell, like we had enough players who couldn't do that when we were shit. So I don't know. One for me is probably like a goal line clearance where it's literally just hit them. Like they've not done anything. They've just stood there and it's just whacked them. Oh, I mean, I'm not taking anything away from it because I loved it at the time. Do you remember the Jota one? Was it last season against Cody?
Yeah.
When he just absolutely wailed it at him. And like Cody, there's no way Cody's reacting. It just happened to be in the way.
Yeah.
And we all went mental. That's probably just because it was Jota. But yeah, that's one thing. Where it's literally like they've done nothing. They've just got hit by the ball. But yeah, I suppose you've got to be there to block it.
Definitely. I was going to say, anyone got any advances of things that annoy you in football, but not necessarily other people? Let us know, because I'm assuming you'll be in safe haven here at the Fancast. But that is it for today's show. I'll be brutally honest, I'm not quite sure when the next show is going to be. Hopefully we'll be putting out a bit of content over the next couple of weeks anyway during the World Cup break, whether it's Wolves based, whether it's, I don't know, film wise with football film stuff, or even maybe some World Cup stuff. Not quite sure yet, but we'll of course keep you up to date as always. But we will of course be back properly, officially talking about Wolves in a few weeks, where we get to cover Gillingham.
Someone spoke about almost like a really good chance to get into a quarter final of a tournament.
I know. We
can't even get excited about it because
not yet. And there's even talk at the moment, not even in the quarterfinals yet, going, would you take a cup? Would you take the League Cup for relegation? And it's like, no. Look, can we at least get cemented in one of those positions first before we're like chancing away one of those two things? Let's, because there's a good chance we'll get relegated and not win the cup. Yeah, statistically, that's where we're headed at the moment. So
that's most likely, isn't it?
Let's not have the hypotheticals just yet. Big thank you to everyone who's tuned in live and listened, and watched back. Your support has been so appreciated over the first few months of this season. Please make sure you keep up to date with all things Wolves Fancast on Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram. It's at Wolves Fancast. And big shouts out to our sponsors, Pixel Yeti Media, and being part of the 90-Min Football Network as well. Until next time, though, it's goodbye from Tom.
Keep the faith. See ya.
It's goodbye from Andy.
See you later, everyone.
And it's goodbye for me. See you next time.